All right, now stick with me here. Even if you don't like the man, but then again, you're probably not even bothering. But so yes, there was this. Zack Snyder held a Snyder Con, yeah, where he showed off quite a few of his movies, and there would be these Q&As. Wish I could have been there, but I couldn't go. But anyway, well, of course, the division over Zack Snyder continues. And one of the things, of course, was the existence of the Snyder Cut. That's over. It exists. I mean, you didn't even need him to come out and say that. I mean, by the time you get to this thing, the different people involved in it said yes, and all the photography had been shot, and it just boiled down to there was visual effects that weren't complete, and I'm sure music as well, and that's about it. But that costs money, and so that's why there is no release as far as that goes. I think there probably would have been by now, like a Blu-ray or something like that, similar to what they did with Batman versus Superman and Watchmen, as it pertains to Snyder. But we found something, didn't we, to get mad at him when it comes to Batman. Now, coming out of Batman versus Superman, there was a lot of people that they didn't like his Batman because he's a murderer. Well, he's not a murderer in the movie. The only argument you could credibly make that Batman's a murderer is that he's a potential murderer, in that he is plotting the killing of Superman. So that would put Batman in the category of first-degree murder, although in Batman's mind it's self-defense because he sees him as a threat to humanity and all that. And probably would have been a better argument having Lex Luthor make it, but little did Batman know that he was in cahoots with Luthor the whole time. And to me, that's one of the weaknesses there. But then you can say that the psychology of Batman, he's enraged over what happened in Metropolis and all that sort of thing. But anyway, the point being, there are people who are grievously wounded and even killed by Batman in the fights and whatnot, but it's all under the idea of self-defense. I mean, they were trying to kill him. He fought back, and, well, sucks to be you, doesn't it? And again, you have to remember, and of course, this is what Snyder likes. He wants it grounded in reality, and that as much as possible. And coming out of the Dark Knight trilogy, which was a reality-based Batman, he lived in a real world. So that's why there's only Batman. There's no Justice League or any of that. So after that was done, Warner's approached Nolan to, hey, could you develop a Superman movie? So he did. He wasn't going to direct it. He was done with that, but he would produce it for them. And they worked on that, and he's the one who brings Zack Snyder in to be the director. And when you see Man of Steel, and before Man of Steel, the title was even released, a lot of people would just refer to it as Superman Begins, which that's what it is. There's a lot of similarity, certainly in tone and look, and that desaturated look, which I don't think works for Superman per se. But nevertheless, that's the choice they were going with. And so this was going to be the Superman Begins version of what Batman Begins was. So you see Clark, and he's lost, and he's kind of trying to find himself and all that sort of thing. And it's his little journey of realizing who and what he is. And he gets there at the end. And of course, all the violence and whatnot, and say he's not as good as Christopher Reeve because he would have taken the fight out of the city. Metropolis did get pretty torn up in Superman 2. So it took him a while to figure that out. Not as bad as what happened in Man of Steel. And of course, there again, the reality effect. This is what it would be like if there were superpowered people having fights like that. Be careful what you wish for when it comes to superheroes. And but also to the point that this is Snyder's version of all these characters is incomplete. This was part one. At the time, was going to be a trilogy of Superman films before Warner stepped in and said we need a Batman movie with Superman to be the sequel. So that's where it changed. It's not a creative choice on Snyder's part, but the violence and everything in it and the destruction. Superman is a freshman superhero. This is his first time in the damn suit. you know, and he has to learn. And so you could imagine, had the trilogy been realized, that by the time you got to the third Man of Steel film, you would have a fully formed Superman who knows what he's doing and all that sort of thing. And that's just the way life works, doesn't it? Now, Batman, in Batman versus Superman, the big complaint that he's a murderer, again, only in the context of that he's plotting to kill Superman until he realizes he's been had. And there's so many weaknesses and flaws within Batman versus Superman, I can't go into it here. But basically, the big screaming at Snyder, largely because of people, I think, who just didn't like him to begin with, and not big fans of any of his movies, let alone Batman versus Superman, which is one of the more flawed one, even though I liked the Ultimate Cut that was on Blu-ray. That one is far superior to the theatrical one, but it's still a flawed movie, primarily in its mission to do what Marvel did in 5 years with one movie. It can't be done. The plot in Lex Luthor, I didn't like his choices on that. I have problems with Zack Snyder. I'm not just going to kiss up to the man ad nauseum, but it doesn't deserve the massive hatred that it gets. And there's choices there, again, when you look into decisions that Warner's wanted as opposed to what Zack may have wanted, considering that he admits that he wrote him and Chris Terrio wrote the script to Justice League while finishing up Batman versus Superman, and then they had to tone it down. Warner said, no, change that around, this and that. So you never really, Man of Steel is as close as you're going to get to a pure Zack Snyder film in this whole thing. Batman vs. Superman isn't it, and of course we never did get to see his Justice League, but it's all Warner Brothers say, no, do this, do that, do this, do that, make it Marvel and all that kind of thing. And so you got to come into, like, would the Flash have been the comic relief character in the original script? Probably not, but, you know. Anyway, the quote is, he says that Watchmen is the end of innocence for superheroes. Superheroes are raping each other, for God's sake. They're I don't know. But they're murdering millions of people to create world. Oh, that's right. The comedian. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But anyway, they're murdering millions of people to create world peace. And yeah. And of course, that's Watchmen. So when someone says to me, oh, Batman killed a guy, I'm like, wake the fuck up. I guess that's what I'm saying. Once you've lost your virginity to Watchmen, and then you come and say to me, like, my superhero wouldn't do that, I'm like, are you serious? I'm down the fucking road. And of course, this is his take on the reality-based idea of superheroes. Batman couldn't do what he's doing, and nobody doesn't get killed or seriously injured. I mean, I guess they're willing to accept paralyzing people and whatnot, but and this Batman is the Dark Knight Returns Batman. That was the idea of approaching this, and that's what got Ben Affleck to agree to this. He was intrigued by that idea. Then, of course, the rug got whipped out from under him by Warner Brothers. But nevertheless, when you read Dark Knight Returns, Batman is very brutal in that, and he actually shoots a man. I mean, you know, believe me, I believe you. Yeah, that, and then he recreates it here. And Zack Snyder's thing, it's not the same thing. The guy ends up burning himself, but still, that's, you know, the approach here. It's very much on the choice of the villain to decide whether or not this happens, and pushing Batman to take such lethal force, if you will. And so the whole idea that it wouldn't happen, it would. Now, if you want to keep it in the realm of the Super Friends cartoon, then, well, good luck with that. But admittedly, of course, the best depiction of Batman will always be, I'm sure, no one's going to get close to this, was the Batman the Animated Series. And as far as I know, I don't know that he actually killed anybody in that one. I suppose you could argue that, you know, by happenstance and, you know, accidents and whatnot, it could happen. But that's not the same thing. And as far as Batman being a murderer in the Zack Snyder movie, no, they're just not so. But, you know, if you don't like Zack Snyder's movie, that's perfectly reasonable and fine. Art is subjective, and there are certainly credible arguments As like I said, I didn't like his choices over the look of the Flash. I didn't like the character. Of course, I don't know who ultimately decided on the character, or personality wise. I don't know, but certainly Lex Luthor. I thought that was just a wasted opportunity. And to me, that's the worst part of Batman versus Superman. Because Lex Luthor is not the Joker. It doesn't work like that. Now, the idea of him being small and thin and frail and that sort of thing as being the polar opposite of Superman, that's fine. You can do it like that. But I tend to like Zack Snyder's movies. I love Dawn of the Dead. I liked 300, and I like Watchmen, especially the ultimate cut. It's just the guy just can't figure out how to shorten the movie. And of course, Batman vs Superman, the extended cut, or ultimate cut rather, is the better version. But it's still a very flawed film. And Watchmen is not. A lot of people have problems with it, but to me, taking the squid out was, I think, the better idea. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So there it is. But does he deserve the raw hatred that he's getting? No. And I mean, consider what the poor guy went through. I don't like bringing up the terrible tragedy that he suffered. But, you know, he's got reasons to kind of have a pissed off attitude about the whole thing. And that just, you know, rubs it in even more, I'm sure, as this happens at the same time. But again, with these franchises and when they fail and all this sort of thing, a lot of people get taken down like that. And Zack Snyder did take a lot of crap. But you got to remember, he's no Ryan Johnson. And I think it was Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers. He really made this point, even though he doesn't like the Batman versus Superman movie. But he's had to admit that, yes, Zack Snyder was more of a man than Ryan Johnson when it comes to the criticism and whatnot. And so, but criticism is one thing, raw hatred against the guy and taking things beyond the context of what it is a step too far. It's perfectly fine not to like his movie. It's perfectly fine to not like the direction of it or the characterizations, and you didn't want Batman to be that violent or what have you. That's all fine, well, and dandy, but to push it to the point that it's murder and you're getting upset because the man dropped F-bombs over it, that's just not with Ryan Johnson, where he went out of his way and lied about his film and attacked people to the point of there being bigots and all that sort of thing. Good Lord. You know, here you have a difference of opinion over the character of Batman, and that's about it. So, there you go. So, that's in defense of Zack Snyder, as best to my ability as I see it. So there you go. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe? And, hey, check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you. Yes, you.